So quality of life impacts your sleep, impacts your daily activities, certainly affects your chronic disease if you should unfortunately have that. So we're addressing that for the doctor, and we expect as we go forward, most of our clients will be using all of our services. And when you said clinical studies, well, this is real world research. This is not in a laboratory or in a university. We're collecting real world data, and that informs the new products and services that we will implement in 2025 onwards.
Hey everybody, it's Stuart Smith, smallcapvoice.com, and you're joining us once again for our online business briefing. And as you can see, I'm not in my office, I'm on the road, and we are welcoming back to the show Troy Grogan. He is the CEO of QHS Lab Incorporated. That ticker symbol again, OTCQB USAQ. Troy, thanks so much for making time for us here on the weekend. This is a great time to talk to you.
Yeah, it's perfect, Stuart. Good to talk to you again as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've got a very busy week ahead of you, and we wanted to dive into this corporate presentation that you shared with Small Cap Voice this past week. Here in January 2025, you've created a really beautiful document. I don't know how else to put it. It's informative, it's educational. We've been working with your company for well over a year, and there was so much in here that maybe it was framed differently, but it's just so easy to digest. And starting right off that first page with the key takeaways for investment, let's kind of get why did you create this, Troy? Obviously, it's something for investors to really dive hard into and understand what they would be taking on in terms of due diligence on your company.
I tell you what, Stuart, when you listen to shareholders, investors, potential investors, and you take a little bit of time to read the emails and the questions they have, you really start to understand what message needs to be communicated, especially when you get two or three at the same time asking very similar questions. And that's what really informed this January 2025 version. It kind of creates a foundation for the next 12 months to build upon. But look, these are answers to questions that shareholders, investors want to know more about. So that's been the inspiration, and that's where we need to go next.
Well, it does a great job of talking about your company and the turnaround. And even since we've been speaking to you back in, I would say November, end of November, December, late 2024, we'll say the stock has had a nice run as well. But when you look at what the next slide I'm going on to, financial turnaround from a loss to a profit of 38% revenue, let's talk a little bit about what investors should expect when they dive into this. And I do want to point out, again, this is going to be available on social media. It's going to be available to the investors via your website. They can request it via email. We want the masses to see this, but what should they expect to see when they dive in here?
Well, the financials are reporting on the period ending September 30. So we've still got a quarter to report, and hopefully you'll invite me back very, very soon, and I'll be able to share some of the Q4 numbers. But we did have a remarkable year in 2025. So we've got close to 40% revenue growth off a small base. We turned profitable. I mean, that's real net income, not just GAAP assessed net income, from a loss of, say, $300,000 to a positive $30,000 as at September 30, 2024. And our gross margin continues to grow at greater than 65%. So we're really excited about the foundation that we've set here. The fiscal management, but also the growth that's starting to come from repeat ordering, recurring revenue type of client base. And that's what we've been working on over the past few years. And we're now starting to see the fruits of our labor and can't wait to accelerate over the next 12 months.
Well, and you mentioned 2025. I think you meant the year 2024 was the year for incredible growth, but we do, and we'll hold you to that, expect the same thing here in 2025. I know you have built the foundation. That's what we're talking about today. It's a highly profitable business model. That's the next slide that I've jumped down to. But even before that, you give a very succinct path to profitability. What is it going to take, that sort of thing? And then you go through actually your allergy diagnostic kits, the immunotherapy treatments, digital health tools, clinical studies. There's just so much here. Would you look at your various revenue streams, I should say, which driver let me frame that a different way. Where do you expect the most growth? Which revenue stream do you expect to really accelerate the most in 2025, or is it all the way across the board?
Yeah, look, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. If I can quote Stephen Covey, I think it was. So we want all of our clients to adopt the entire QHS quality health system portfolio. We've done this on purpose. We approach primary care independent physicians who lack time and lack resources and technology. So we're their technology and we're their gap filling service. So, and we're addressing quality of life. That's the quality health system. That's allergy, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. Individuals have a whole body. They don't have segments. So quality of life impacts your sleep, impacts your daily activities, certainly affects your chronic disease if you should unfortunately have that. So we're addressing that for the doctor, and we expect as we go forward, most of our clients will be using all of our services. And when you said clinical studies, well, this is real world research. This is not in a laboratory or in a university. We're collecting real world data, and that informs the new products and services that we will implement in 2025 onwards. It's informed all of the programs, assessments, and services that we do now. And it's just very fortunate under the leadership of Marcos Sanchez Gonzalez that we've been able to attract commercial sponsorship and grants that go into the data collection and the peer-reviewed publications and the conference presentations that certainly give us a strong position in front of any potential competitor by a long way right now.
Well, and I think you mentioned Dr. Marcos Sanchez Gonzalez. We did an earlier interview with him to round out 2024. We did an interview with you, and I always talk about those two interviews being on a parallel path, kind of discussing how we're going to do it and then why we're going to do it. And when we get to this slide, the problem, primary care gaps are failing millions of patients. Let's discuss that problem a little bit so the investors understand the potential of what your company is about to embark upon.
Well, like I mentioned, our focus, our target audience is an independent primary care practice or primary care provider. And so half of all primary care providers, and let's just say there's 500,000 primary care providers in the country, half of them are still independent. They're in small groups. There's not many solo doctors out there anymore, but they're still there. But they've formed small groups, 1 to 5, 1 to 10 primary care providers. So they don't belong to hospital systems or university systems. They don't have chief technology officers. They don't have CMOs and CEOs. They run a small business, very good, strong administration in some of these more formed groups. But what we do is come in from a population health management perspective. And like I mentioned, or like you mentioned, gaps. What are the gaps? Time. Time is a big problem. If you've got 20 minutes 3 times a year, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with a patient over the course of 12 months if they're only getting 60 minutes a year in front of a doctor. So we're collecting data from the patient all year long. We're compiling that. We're turning that into usable reports. We're creating alerts for the practice so that the practice itself can manage patients when they're not in front of the provider, but all throughout the year. And these are reimbursable services as well. Okay, that's another problem that these independent practices have. They're looking for revenue to sustain their practice, to grow their practice, and we bring these insurance reimbursement procedures in an easy to use and evidence-based and efficacious way for the population.
Well, once again, we're speaking to Troy Grogan. He is the CEO of QHS Lab Incorporated, traded on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol USAQ. And we're discussing a corporate presentation the company has issued here in the month of January 2025, and it goes into great detail. And one area I want to talk to you about then is the competitive landscape, Troy. As you approach these associations, these primary care groups, why QHS Labs? Why would they choose you?
Well, one of the biggest impediments is the status quo itself and its change itself. It's not like we have Toyota versus Ford here, where there's two very well-known products, and someone is evaluating, do I want this one or the other one? So number one, we've got to overcome that inertia, the obstacle itself of change.
Mm.
Number two is once we get change, the competitive advantage that QHS Lab has right now is the cost of switching. Once you start going down the path of population health management, enrolling patients into QHS assessments and programs, the doctor doesn't want to switch. The amount of money that they put into that, the investment the patient has. And the other thing is, we're not like a one service. We're not just on diabetes or just on allergy or just on hypertension. We are a universal preventive health and chronic care management platform. So a doctor only needs QHS for their preventive and population health needs at that primary care level. And the amount of data that we're collecting, we're a young company, we're growing, but we're a long way in front of any competition right now. And we've got proprietary algorithms. We're publishing, we're going to conferences, we're speaking, we're building a reputation, a solid, trustworthy reputation. And these are the competitive advantages we see right now. And we've got a roadmap just for the next 12 months on how we're going to build upon each one of those metrics.
Well, quickly, an aside here, there was an 8K filed in January as well. You talk about presenting. You have made yourself very available. You're going to be Thursday and Friday, Thursday through Saturday, February 6th through the 8th, 2025. You're going to be at the Pre-Med South Annual Conference. So for those in the Florida area that would like to see and learn more about the company, we encourage you to pull up that 8K filing. Well, Troy, you mentioned us having you back in the near future. Of course, we'd love to have you back. We also know that Marcos will be shooting and filming some of his own videos and sharing those with investors. So the company's really become more and more proactive in reaching out to their investors, and you've created this wonderful presentation for them to really dive in, understand the technologies, the proprietary remedies that you have for these different associations, these doctors. And I think right now I want to leave it with you and just kind of give you the floor and say, okay, so as we look through 2025, what do you want potential investors to know about QHS Lab?
Well, number one, we are off a small base, but we're growing rapidly. And the whole idea now is to progress the number of active users, number of active practices, and that's through sales marketing. We've got a very strong pipeline. The onboarding process is happening for a number of new clients, which I'll be able to report out very, very shortly. But there's also another crucial factor here, and that is the number of services, number of programs, number of assessments per current client. And it's growing that metric, so increasing revenue and throughput per current client. So that way, when we bring on a new client, there's already a portfolio of products and services to increase the income per customer. So right now, we're somewhere around $20,000 to $30,000 per customer per year. But we will see that grow to $50,000 per customer per year very shortly. And then we want to see that grow above there as well. So these are the things that we're working behind the scenes on. And very soon, I'll be able to present our Q4 numbers. We're going through audit at the moment. We'll get our 10K out prior to the deadline and be on good track for 2025.
Exciting stuff. And I got to say, we barely scratched the surface of this corporate presentation. So I can't wait for people to get their hands on it, to comment on this video below, to subscribe to our feed so that they can always find you, Troy, with us here at smallcapvoice.com. If you like what you see, viewers, hit that like button, reach out to us, get your questions for Troy, Dr. Marco Sanchez Gonzalez. Get your questions to us because we're going to be bringing these gentlemen back often here in 2025 as more great news for the company hits the press wire right here at smallcapvoice.com. Troy, thanks so much for your time today.
Always a pleasure, Stuart. Thank you.
All right, absolutely. For Troy Grogan, this is Stuart Smith saying thanks so much for tuning in.